Hey, this is Peter with Unlocking Immortality. Doing another one of my live sessions, and this one's called Feeling Fake. It's how I got into conspiracies and health, standing on my truth. So I've been scared to share my personal beliefs and stand on my truth, share how I really feel because I'm not used to dealing with conflict. I'm trying to stand on what I know and share how I feel right now. So that's what I'm working on. So that's one reason I've been feeling fake, and I haven't been putting enough time into learning the things that I say that I'm interested in, like gardening, landscaping, carpentry, and health. And this whole channel is pretty much about improving our mental, physical, and spiritual health. So if I really want to be improving the health of others, I need to be an example for myself. I need to be an example for others, and I need to stop eating processed sugar, um, which apparently is 10 times as addicting as cocaine. Um, processed sugar, and I need to breathe and stretch more. Yeah, this is just me talking to myself, documenting my story. So sorry, there's not too much of a focus in this life. Uh, it might be a little bit of a ramble, just me talking about myself and how got here. So I might bring up some information that needs some sources or some videos to really to really show the proof, the evidence that I'm gonna try to share. So I can include. I don't have those right now. If I were to give a better presentation, I would have those all lined up, and I would Zoom share the screen so I can go over it as I share it. Maybe that'll be another time, like tomorrow, uh, or I'll just add the links into the description afterwards as I talk about it. So as I rewatch and talk about it. So please share any questions or comments that you guys have as you're watching. So this is how I got into conspiracies, and it all started in fourth grade when I was watching music videos on YouTube. And I think most people have seen these Illuminati comments. They seem like spam, where it was just talking about the evil that was behind all the media and these artists, and I guess to repent them and to not look up to them. So in my mind, I thought that there was a possibility. So I looked it up on YouTube and I saw a video about a pastor talking about Jay-Z, the devil, and how the music industry is all controlled by the devil. And they played a song backward. They played a Jay-Z song backwards, and it said like 666 murder murder Jesus when it was played backwards. So it got me thinking that yeah, this is pretty likely. This is probably true. But I'm in fourth grade and I didn't really think too much more of it. I just thought this is just like higher levels of control. And yeah, so I guess throughout the my grade school experience, I kept listening to music, seeing the new music videos, and a lot of the music uh, had a lot of suggestive imagery, had a lot of satanic references and imagery. So it kept confirming worship that the Illuminati comments were talking about. So I assumed that it's pretty real, but I didn't really think about it until I graduated high school. At the time, WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden was a hot topic, and it sparked my interest in what the government and what secrets the government may have. So I started looking into conspiracies. That's 2015. Yeah, and I was reading about 9/11. Um, First, I read about 9/11, how it's unexplained how World Trade Center 7 collapsed after it was on fire for like 6 hours, and then it just suddenly collapsed. Like many other buildings have been on fire for a long time and nothing happened to them, or if anything, it would never completely collapse like a demolition. So that was really strange. And then, like all the studies about it, they showed that it's not physically possible for that to happen. But yeah, that happened later. And then there's a ton of coincidences about people profiting off of it, like I don't know about stocks or options right before it happened, and how like the owner of the building was supposed to be there when it was blown up, um, but that the owner canceled his appointment to be there. So there's so many more coincidences, and that's one of the easiest stuff that I could pull up and show more proof to. You could just Google that 9/11 coincidences maybe on Reddit, but yeah, maybe I'll look into it. But it's pretty crazy. And so at the time, just a high school student, it pretty I guess I was in a probability. All these things lining up, these too many coincidences convinced me that there's pretty crazy levels of control and deception in this world. And I showed it to my dad at the time. I showed it to some friends. They didn't really believe it. They didn't really get into it because what more can you do? So I kind of put it away in my mind, and I didn't get into it again until 2019 when when the Jeffrey Epstein suicide happened, so called. And I was really excited about it at the time. I was thought the whole world was going to shake up because a lot of people were going to get outed, and uh, yeah, it was going to blow up the world. And so the possibilities of the situation really interest me, and it was like nothing else I'd ever read, never gotten into. Um, I guess just how how all the deception in the world was about to come true, how a lot of stuff was about to be revealed to us, but it never happened. And so it was kind of stuck with me in my heart, and it built my passion and fire to keep on searching, keep on researching. And then Kobe Bryant's death. Um, Kobe Bryant's death happened a little bit afterwards. That was the next event that got me hooked, and he was like one of my biggest role models, favorite people that I looked up to. So it was a big deal. But at the time, I was into gematria, which people look into um, like the numerical value of days, of names, of of letters in different languages, and they put in different types of numerical codes, and then they can find all these different coincidences. I was into math and coincidences, so it really spoke to me, and I looked into all the gematria and and there were a ton of coincidences about him dying at 41, his last shot at over like 41, just everything about 41. There was a lot of predictive programming that was in there, just a ton of coincidences. Uh, yeah, it made me feel like it was a scripted event, and it got me more into gematria and got me more into feeling how a lot of news events were fake. And then, yeah, I guess here's where it kind of gets out of chronological order. After that's kind of when I got a little bit more into it, when I learned about, uh, I guess when COVID started becoming a big deal in early 2020, March of 2020. Yeah, I was into conspiracies, and so I looked into new research, and I found some videos by like Tom Cowan, Andrew Kaufman. If you search those names up on YouTube or you'll be able to see a fair bit of their content. Most of their stuff is moved to alternative video sites like Odyssey and Library, but they have very compelling. They have all the proof to show that viruses have never been isolated and purified. So pretty much, if you were to say that A causes B, you would need to isolate A first and prove that. Yeah. If you wanted to test a variable, you need to have the variable isolated, and that's kind of been basic experimenting, and that most people in science know. And so when this was pointed out, how a virus was never isolated, how it was just sequenced on a computer, they entered in certain gene sequences that must have been on that were supposed to be on the simulated gene. I'm not the person to talk about it, but pretty much it was all simulated, and the PCR test that people are used to testing if they're positive, if they're actually sick, was also kind of a scam. Is also a scam. The owner, the creator of the test, said that it can't be used to diagnose illness, but and so when you look into the test, there's a cycle number, and that's talking about um, how much it's zooming in onto how much the PCR test is zooming in, and uh, we found that as the more you zoom in, the higher the cycle number, the more the positive rate increases. So it doesn't really depend on what the sample is; it's more dependent on the cycle number. And also, in my experience with viruses and sickness, when I was around people that were sick and they were around many other people, they didn't really infect others. So in my experience, uh, viruses didn't really hold up to the science that I was told. And this is also Tom Cowan, Andrew Kaufman. They also kind of introduced me into, I guess, scientific holistic healing. Um, a lot of people had talked about health and diet before, but I guess no one really explained it as clear as them at the time, and so that's really what resonated with me and made me want. I don't know, I forget what specific information they were pointing out, but I learned how poisonous certain foods and medicines were to the body. I learned what metals, uh, what are actually in vaccines and many foods, and I learned how proper diet and fasting can heal the body. And they talked about many examples of them of people being cured of cancer when they changed their diet, when they changed their eating. Uh, there were other methods of healing like vibrational, uh, yeah, many things that sparked my mind into alternative ways of doing things in this world. And so I try to impact lives around me. My mom was going through cancer, and I showed my mom some of the videos talking about diet, talking about eating raw fruit, raw food, and fruit only. And my mom thought it made sense. She thought it was logical, but didn't really think that it was possible for her at her state. And um, yeah, this is a little bit of a segue, but I was hypocritical. It's a sidetrack, but I was hypocritical because I didn't change my diet. It kind of disappointed me that she wasn't able to change, but that was just me being immature and not um, using, I guess, that kind of slight disappointment as fuel to keep me going. So, mm, so I didn't change my diet. I kept on eating unhealthily after I showed her those ways, and it was just because I didn't have enough willpower. No, I yeah, and I didn't really get into spirituality and manifesting, so I didn't have that belief and that strength to really want to change my life crazily. I was just still in infant stage, still being taken care of my parents, and that's another one of my biggest regrets. So I guess the next thing would have been is how conspiracies changed my map of the internal world. So early in 2020, I learned about flat Earth, and mm, I guess the strongest proof for that is that um, people have been shown zooming in on cameras across oceans, across rivers and seas, and on a curved Earth, we're not supposed to be able to look straight and see like the coast the opposite coastline at the same elevation from a far distance. Some people were able to zoom in like 40 miles and see see a mirror that was at the same elevation, and pretty much on a ball Earth, every point is the highest point, and it's slightly curving and descending downwards. So there would be like 6 or 8 inches per mile squared was the calculation, and so something should be covered by miles and should not have been able to see. So that for me was enough proof to confirm um, that the Earth was flat or not what we were told. You know, until we see definitive proof of the whole thing, we don't really know. So um, I try to experiment for myself. I was in an airplane and I looked uh, at the window, and it seemed kind of curved. And so I thought that, okay, maybe it's curved. And most of us in the airplane, when we look at outside, it is kind of curved, but that's just because the airplane window is curved. That there's two different windows, and that's the effect. That's what I learned. So it actually is flat, and the skyline, the horizon is flat, and it really changed what I believed in this world. I saw a lot of the NASA, I guess, deception, how a lot of their footage, there would be kind of specks of dust or small bubbles that would kind of pop and evaporate in the air. And someone brought it up, and someone brought it up how they were how NASA has many stations, and they have large underwater facilities that they film, or they say that they practice there. Uh, yeah, that they practice in, um, and pretty much it didn't make sense how any of that would be happening in space if there was no gravity. Um, and then I forget which mission, Apollo, Voyager. Just a lot of these spaceships or satellites just actually looked like junk. It just looked like a science project made out of aluminum foil. Like it really did look like that. So yeah, I'll show a picture of that. That's pretty glaring, obvious that there's no way that this traveled to the moon. Um, and mm, and then there's a lot of really interesting things about how our globe ball Earth theory is not as it seems, is not as it's told. Like how we're flying in space at I think 666 miles per hour all the time, or 6,666, but pretty much we don't feel any of that. Um, how how we're also rotating at really high speed, but water's not flying or spinning off of our Earth, and people say that gravity is holding it in. That's the reason why it's not as we're rotating and as we're moving. But then, how do balloons float away? How do insects and birds fly without feeling the effects of gravity? And so, um, pretty much what's always been the case is density, and that's where uh, things will fall to the point that things will reach the level that their weight, that their mass, that their density is at, that the yeah, pretty much that this was always the consistent thing, and pretty much that this was how, pretty much that this was gravity, the density that they were just calling density gravity. That's it. And then along with that worldview was questioning the North Pole and Antarctica, questioning just the borders and boundaries of where we're living. Um, s- yeah, so in flat Earth, they say that there is in flat Earth, round. I should show a picture of this, but pretty much there's a they say that there's an Antarctic ice wall, that there's a North Pole, and then the South Pole, which is Antarctica, is actually just a ring uh, that surrounds all the countries and oceans, kind of like Game of Thrones, I think. Um, and I guess another thing that was kind of fishy about it was Operation High Jump. I think that happened like late in World War II, where Admiral Byrd. You can Google Operation High Jump. Admiral Byrd said that he flew to Antarctica, he flew a little past that, and he found more unexplored land. And we can't really confirm it, but this is just official reports that there's more to this Earth. And then there's the Antarctic Treaty, which is all the countries saying that we're not allowed to go past a certain point. We're not allowed to go to the Antarctica by ourselves and explore. So that's also kind of strange. Um, and then I guess at the North Pole and what is there. So in some people's experiences, or like people go there and they see the aurora borealis that happens sometime during the year, but they're not truly at the North Pole. And so some people have been trying to actually go to the true North Pole, and um, this is just what I've heard, what I heard someone talk about, and it was people flying there, but then their planes would somewhat technologically malfunction, and they wouldn't be able to actually go there. So uh, that's also really interesting. It seems some paranormal, supernatural there, um, and it's really interesting. And then after that, I saw someone zoom in on a picture of the moon and show how it's a reflection of the Earth. Someone zoomed in on the moon and they found a matching image of the Earth and the continents and our land, our water. Um, and it was in one of the craters of the moon. So pretty much this also made sense with like the outer lands, with being surrounded by a wall and having more land around us. Um, and then I guess the Bible also talks about the Earth. I think they said that it's a circle, or they said that it's flat, and they also talk about there being a firmament, or there being like some type of container around it. And I think that's all. Yeah, a lot of people, I guess, more questioning about space and the stars. A lot of people zoomed in on planets, and they took videos of planets, and it showed that they're luminaries, uh, that they're images, that they're projections, that they would sometimes flash and they wouldn't actually be solid, that some parts of it would be missing sometimes. Um, so it just really opened my mind into what the planets are, what stars are, if they're just projections on the firmament, and how that compares to like a cell inside of our body. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I got into most of this stuff. Yeah, it's really not that crazy, I guess. Just from YouTube videos in fourth grade, and then 9/11, and then Jeffrey Epstein, and then COVID has been all over the place, and then it's the New World Order. Yeah. Mm. So yeah, this has been like a pretty rough presentation. I am not too sure the focus of like what I'm trying to be showing, but yeah, this is just how I got into it, and it's really changed my life. This has been the the uh, the biggest conscious information, the most logical information that has opened my mind and really changed my life path. So I'm all in on this, and I'm trying to stand on this more. Mm, and I'll pretty much be sharing this with everyone in person. Yeah. So that's how I'm doing. I just played basketball, had a pretty good game. Got to work out more. I'm finally able to work out again. It feels good. Um, Making some good progress pretty quickly, but I got to stay focused on it. Um, yeah, just got to breathe more. Just got to do the things that I say. Um, what's going on right now? I guess social profiling and stuff. Like what I feel is going on in the world right now. Um, I feel like people are starting to wake up to a lot of the deception that's happening in the world. Like a lot of the hypocritical and lack of transparent research and guidelines that's been given by authorities through this whole COVID crisis. Um, yeah, I think it's really opened up a lot of people's minds, and there's kind of a lot of uncertainty. Uh, that and inflation and I guess all the protests going on in, in many countries. I haven't been paying too much attention to it, honestly. I have a lot that I'm really into, and so I feel a little bit fake because I can't go into it that deeply. But it just takes a little bit of. I've never really gone through this. I've never really thought about this whole thing as I did today. So it's a good step for me, and I'll be able to integrate it more into my life as I talk to people. Mm, yeah, people feeling uncertain. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to be more knowledgeable about things when I talked about them, not feel fake about habits and things that I say are my passions. But like I bought a keyboard and like 4 or 5 years ago, but I have never played it. I mean, I'll still get to that sometime. I think it's totally possible for me to learn piano, for me to learn sewing and carpentry and gardening and landscaping and all these things. So uh, I just got to really put my effort into what I say I'm interested in. Um, right now, I'm doing a lot of mental exercises. I'm just trying to improve my imagination so that I'm not as trapped in the cycle of day to day living, where I'm eating out of routine, sleeping out of routine. Just trying to be more spontaneous with with how I feel and my thoughts and my imagination, so that I'm more inspired and I'm less tempted to yeah to do things that are bad for my health. And the breathing is the biggest way for me to get my focus. So mm, yeah, it's yeah, it's been good. It's good to get this off my chest. Makes me feel a little bit more real. Now that I have confidence, I can share this with most people. It needs a lot more research. Yeah, so definitely gonna put up. Definitely gonna try and come up with more solid reasons for this whole thing and how I got into these steps. I'll show my sources on a Zoom share screen next time, so that it'll be a lot more easier to follow along. Yeah, this is really just me taking a step and speaking out at this time. I guess with people listening. So um, yeah, I'm gonna work on this. Yeah, thanks for listening. You guys do appreciate it. Have a good one. Take care.